episode number 3. You are listening to the More Than a Lawyer podcast with your host, Janine Esbrand. I'm here to help lawyers and mums to thrive in their careers and motherhood. I share tips, strategies, and inspirational conversation with awesome women to help you reduce the struggle in your juggle. Hello and welcome to the show. Today we are going to be talking about the most valuable resource that we all have. No, I'm not talking about money, I'm talking about time, because once you spend it, you can't get it back. My guest today is going to share how you can make time for the important things in your life. She takes a different approach to time management, one that you may not have heard before, so you do not want to miss this. Busy lawyer, busy mum, you need to hear this. This is going to change things for you. So, okay, without further ado, let's jump right in. Hi Marissa, I just want to welcome you to the show. Thank you so much for being here today. Can you please just introduce yourself to our audience, tell them a bit about who you are, what you do. It'd be great to hear.
Yeah, hi, I'm so excited to be here. My name is Marissa, and I am the mom behind the Riss Lawton Company. And my journey to entrepreneurship or mompreneurship has been an interesting one. To make a long story short, I started in corporate finance, and then that was too corporate for me. So I switched over to a softer science and went to graduate school and got my master's degree in mental health counseling. And I counseled people, mostly women, and I like to work with new moms. And I did that for a few years until I became a mom myself. And then I decided to start something of my own. And I now help moms and mompreneurs with finding time management skills and balance. And so I kind of combine that strategy side of myself with the helper side of myself. Mm-hmm. And that's where the Riss Lawton Company came from.
Wow, that sounds awesome. There's so much in there that I want to ask you about. So for a lot of our listeners, they are lawyers who are mums and who are juggling that balance, or they're lawyers who want to be mums at some point. And so a lot of what you said is going to be really useful for you to kind of expand on. So the first thing I just wanted to ask you about was that transition that you made from corporate life to, becoming a mompreneur and doing something different, because a lot of people get stuck. They kind of feel like, well, I'm in this role, I don't enjoy it, but what else would I do? And so it would be really good to hear about how you decided to make a switch and that kind of the thought process that went into that.
Yeah, well, I went to business school for my undergrad, and I loved it. It was very much and still is important to me, like using that analytical kind of side of my brain. And I was working corporate, and I just happened to fall in love with a military man, and we moved from a large city to the middle of nowhere, Alaska.
Wow.
Yeah, and so there was no corporate finance banking jobs up there. I actually ended up, for a very short time, just being a teller in a bank because it was the only thing remotely connected to finance that I could find. And it was just, it did not use my skill set whatsoever. And so I ended up leaving that job and just kind of like hanging out for a little while, to be honest. And then my husband deployed to Afghanistan. And so I had a year to myself to kind of just think about what I really wanted to do and what I was missing. Mm-hmm. And from the corporate side, like I said, I loved that analytical piece, but I was missing, helping people. So through that kind of soul searching, and when my husband was deployed is when I got my master's in mental health. So I think I just had a really, I don't know the word to say. It was just really fortunate that I had that time. Well, even though it was a scary time and, we were worried about his safety, I was supported during a time where I was able to do a lot of soul searching, which I'm very lucky and very fortunate to have had. And during that period, I kind of got to explore what I wanted to do.
Yeah. I think that's awesome, and the fact that you took that time out, because I guess for a lot of people they're on a certain track and then they're just doing their day to day over and over again, and then they don't really have that time or that space to say, hey, is this really working for me, and if it's not, what else could I do, or how could I tweak things. um so yeah, I think for me, I had an experience where I qualified as a lawyer, and then I was like, oh, this isn't all that I thought it was going to be. Like, I enjoy my job, but I, like you said, I missed that helping people. And so that kind of led me to coaching and being able to help people on a more personal level. And so for me, then it's a good balance to be able to do both. um
Yeah, and I think I easily could have fallen into that trap if we hadn't moved to the location that we moved, where the Army just said, sorry, but you're going to end up in Alaska. You don't get much say over that. So it's almost like a door was kind of shut on me. And at first it was a little upsetting, and it was a little like frustrating because I wasn't able to do what I wanted, like what I thought I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But like that, in the end, it kind of ended up being a fortunate accident or a fortunate whatever, because I had the opportunity, even though at first I didn't necessarily see it that way. I had to find a new path. I didn't have a choice really. And then I ended up finding a path that I loved.
Yeah, that's I love it. I love it. I love it when people get to a point where they find something that they just really passionate about and they love to do it, and everything just kind of flows then.
Yeah.
Are there any like major challenges that you face apart from kind of moving to the middle of nowhere and having to restart life? But in terms of the actual, okay, now I'm going to do something different. Now I'm going to shift. Like, did you find there to be any major challenges for you?
Well, one of the major challenges I found is a lot of people who go into and get a master's in a field, their undergraduate graduate degree is usually related. So, maybe for a lawyer, they might have studied political science for an undergraduate, and then they go to law school, or they might study something that's more related. Well, I went from like finance to mental health, so there was nothing related.
Completely different.
And really, in my first year of grad school, I was playing a lot of catch up because I didn't understand a lot of the terminology, or I hadn't done a lot of the field work that some of my students in my cohort had done, because maybe they were psychology or sociology majors. Okay. So that was definitely, a hurdle that I had to get over, but I think I managed okay. By my second year, I was pretty caught up. But it was definitely something to get used to. And a lot of my professors would kind of tease me because my papers would be written like in the tone of voice of a business major, not of a psychology major.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was definitely like a barrier to entry, or whatever you want to call it. But I don't know. I figured it out.
Yeah. And every one of my mantras that I've adopted, which is something that Marie Forleo says, and she says everything is figure outable. And the more and more I get into doing stuff that's slightly different, or that I don't know much about, it just takes a bit of time and dedication, and you can just pretty much figure it all out.
I'm familiar with her, but I haven't gotten into her stuff as much as I probably should. But I really like that quote. I like her stuff.
She's got some really, really cool stuff. She has a YouTube channel, Marie TV, and yeah, so I love it. I'm always consuming her content. So talk to me a bit about motherhood now. So the move from being a corporate woman to then working in mental health, that's a big shift. But then becoming a mum. So it'd be great to hear about your mummy story, because I love those too.
Yeah, it's almost kind of a similar situation where like that door being shut and having to find a window to crawl out of. Daughter was born with some health concerns. She'll be 2 next month, so probably by the time this goes live, she'll already be 2. And everything is fine now, and everything's resolved itself now. But when she was born, her newborn period was it was hell, if I could just be frank and say it. Like, literally, she'd wake up at 7 in the morning and scream until 7 at night. She'd sleep all night, a wonderful sleeper all night. But then from the time she woke up, again, she never napped, and it was just like screaming. It wasn't fussing, it wasn't crying, it was screaming.
Wow.
Yeah, and luckily, it's no longer like that, and we figured out what we needed to do for her, medicines and everything, and so we got it under control, but it took several months. And here in the States, we only get a 6-week maternity leave, and my boss was generous and gave me 8 weeks. And so I went back to work at 8 weeks, and for 2 weeks, I tried a sitter. I tried to have my daughter go to a daycare, and they were calling me to come get her. They'd say she hasn't eaten in 6 hours, she hasn't stopped screaming, all of this stuff. And then I would get there, and she would just like calm down immediately and eat for me and stuff. And so it was kind of a sign that at least for a little while I needed to stay home. But I had never intended to be a stay-at-home mom in the traditional sense. Like, I don't see anything wrong with that at all. I respect stay-at-home moms so much, but it just never was for me. And so with my daughter's health concerns, and then being almost forced to stay home from work, I went through a bout of postpartum depression. And so really, it wasn't until I kind of started my business and started having a purpose and a passion in addition to motherhood. I started coming up. And so at first it was just a blog and just something to do. And then I was like, okay, I have a skill set from the corporate world, and here's my opportunity to build on it. And here's my opportunity to use that skill set and to use what I've learned in undergrad and my graduate degree, and just to put it all together and to do something with it.
Wow, that is amazing. And it's like people go through so many different challenges in the beginning of motherhood, and I think that people struggle, and they struggle with different things and sometimes feel like they're the only one going through it. So it's really awesome for you to just like share that, because I'm sure there's women out there that are going through difficult times with health concerns and just trying to juggle that all. Because it's just not easy, that early period, even if your child doesn't have any health concerns. So when they do, it can be really tough.
Right. And I used to be really ashamed to admit all of that stuff. I never took my daughter. We couldn't even go to Target or out of the house because she'd scream, and people would just give me these looks like, why can't you make your baby be quiet? And so it just got to the point where I was just isolated, and I didn't even have, like I said, I didn't even have work, or I didn't have colleagues to talk to anymore. And I used to be really ashamed to talk about it. But now it took me, I would say, at least a year, but now definitely at 2 years postpartum, I talk about it as much as I can, because there are women who feel the same way. They feel ashamed of what they're going through, or they feel like they're failing in some sense. And so I try and talk about my experience as much as I can.
Yeah. And the other thing I love that you just said as well was about the fact that you looked at the situation and you kind of shifted what you intended to do. So you didn't intend to necessarily stay home, but you saw that was the situation that was required, what was required of you in the situation, and then you just had to shift. So it's important for us to stay flexible, because I think especially when you come from a corporate background, you tend to be a planner, or someone who's like, right, this is the plan, this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to make it happen. And when you become a mom, that kind of goes out the window, because the baby doesn't always follow the plan, which I have experienced. And so it's really, a good thing to just be flexible.
You're raising my hand. The audience can't see me, but I'm like, yes, that is so me. And it's funny because that's what my business is all about. I help moms make plans with their business and with their babies in mind. Yes. because it's a huge adjustment. And it's like, okay, I used to be phenomenal at building this schedule, or I used to be phenomenal at reaching my goals. Now I'm a mom and I feel like it's just impossible. And my whole mission is, it is possible. Yes, things look different, and they're going to look differently. You know, your deadlines probably take 2 or 3 times as long as they might have, but it is all still possible. Yeah. So that's my mission, is to help moms have their purpose beyond motherhood, to still have an identity, and to be able to reach their goals while still feeling like good moms.
Yeah, I love that goal. I came across you through, I think it was Periscope. And like you was doing kind of different talks on different topics around kind of managing your time and ways to balance, and I just thought it was awesome. So it would be good for you to maybe share some of your key tips. And I do think that if anyone's listening who isn't a mompreneur, I think even in your career, a lot of the things that you share can be used there when you're juggling your career with your family life. So could you give us some of your maybe like top 3 things that you tend to say to people to do?
Absolutely. And I think this applies to career women and mompreneurs in the same sense. And my number one thing that I say is that double your deadlines. So I'm not as familiar with like the law arena as, I am other areas. But, one thing I hear about is making partner, or you want to move up at a firm, right? Well, you might see other single women or other women who don't have kids. They may be married, but they're not moms yet, and they're moving up the ladder faster than you. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's nothing wrong with having a slower progression. If you're moving forward and you're reaching your goals, who cares if it takes twice as long? And I think that is something that I help a lot of moms see, is that progress might look different now that you're a mother in your career, but it doesn't mean you have to stop. It might be slower. It might be more of like in a zigzag pattern. You might not be going straight up to the top like you thought you might have before your babies, but you can still make progress and you can still reach your goals. It just might look a little different. So that's one of the things about like mindset that I really help moms look at. And when I talk about strategy, the first thing I do is I tell moms to like double their deadline. So if pre-baby something would have taken you 4 weeks, like a brief, I'm just making this stuff up, but like
yeah, I get it.
A week to write an amazing legal brief before your baby, say it takes you 2 weeks, just automatically double it. And in your mind, you get used to having a slower pace, and maybe you finish it in a week and a half. The bonus of that is you've beaten your own deadline, so it's like a boost in confidence. And then you have a whole half a week that you just bank that extra time. Mm-hmm. But you're changing your mindset around things a little bit, and maybe you're slowing down, but it's a lot less stressful to kind of look at it that way than it is to be so caught up in the hustle and to be overwhelming yourself and to be burning yourself out.
Oh, do you know what? I need to take a moment because those 2 things are just gold. Like, seriously, just the fact that you're saying, it's okay for it to be slower, because when you're a single woman, or even if you're married, you have one less hat that you wear. When you become a mother, there's so much more that goes into that, and it's another element of you, and it's a beautiful, like, amazing experience. So you have that added element, and so you have to remember that when you're saying, okay, I want to do this, this and this. It's like, yeah, but you've got this other element of your life, and you need to be able to prioritize. And so if you allow yourself that space to just say, you know what, it's okay, like, it will take longer, it's fine, then you just would take so much stress and pressure off of yourself.
Exactly. That is something that I definitely went through personally, is embracing that this is a change. Like, I think too many people don't embrace the fact that motherhood changes everything. You hear it all the time. You hear that everything in your life's about to change, but It's really easy, and this is what I tried to do at first, and this is, I think, why I went through the postpartum depression. I thought I would just continue my life as normal, and then my baby would just fit in my life.
Yes.
Because I don't, I mean, maybe I'm going to get a little really honest here, but I don't think I wanted to embrace the fact that things had changed. I mean, I love my daughter. I'm not saying that at all, but it's like, I really honestly thought that I would continue the way that I always had, and I would just have an accessory or
Yeah.
that sounds so bad, but you know
No,
what I'm saying.
yeah.
Somebody accompanying me on a path that I had already started. I did not embrace the fact that my path would just be completely different.
Yeah.
And that's, I guess, just because I've been through it. That's what I try and get moms to see. Does not mean that your goals will not happen. It does not mean that you have to abandon everything. But I do encourage moms to embrace the fact that things are different. Let's make a plan. Let's reprioritize some stuff. Let's figure out your new path, and you can still get to your goals. You can still make it all happen. It's just going to look different.
Yeah, it's so important to have that kind of mindset shift. But the thing is, for every mother, she would have spent however many years of her life, so 25, 30, 35 years of her life just doing her. And even if you get married, it's like you're walking alongside another adult, so you still kind of do you compromise to an extent, but you're still doing you.
Right.
And then you become a mother, so you've got like a whole lifetime of doing things one way. And so it's understandable that people find it difficult to make that transition to like, okay, now life has to completely change, and how I was before is not how I can always be now. So it's good to work with someone who can kind of help you to, like see things from a different perspective.
Well, and I see it the other way too, because I see a lot of moms say, okay, now I'm a mom, so all of those 20, 30 years that I had where I was doing me and I did have my own goals, they don't matter anymore.
Yeah.
I think that's the right answer either, if I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
I think that there's a way to retain your identity, retain your passion and your purpose and your goals, and be a mom. And so that middle road is where it's at.
Yeah. So tell me a bit about your audit, or share with the audience. So I opted into your audit, and I did it in terms of my time, because right now I am a mummy, a wife, I am a business owner, and I'm also practicing as a lawyer. So I'm wearing loads of hats. So when I came across your audit, I was like, yes, I need to figure out how I manage this time. And so I want you to tell people about it, why you came up with it, and how it's helping people.
Absolutely. So along the same lines of what I was just talking about, where it's not just being yourself and having a baby go along with you, and it's not about completely abandoning that and just being a mom. It's a middle road. So if we're on that middle road, a lot of people, they're like, okay, I'm trying to find the balance between this, but now I have no idea how to manage my time. And something that I've found is a lot of people subscribe to this mentality, and I used to be this way, and almost, I would say, like 95% of the people I meet think this way too, until we have a conversation about it. But it's like, we've gotten this message somewhere. I don't know if it's TV. I don't know if it's just like society, but we've gotten this message somewhere that we have to do everything on our list. We have to do everything we feel like we have to do first. And then if we finish and we manage to have a couple minutes left over, then we might be able to do something for ourselves. And I think that is such a backwards way to look at it. Like, I really think that the way that we should build our schedules, anybody, but especially moms, and especially moms with careers or moms with their own businesses, like, create a schedule that accounts for everything you love to do or everything that is important to you first. And then what's left over from that is the stuff that goes to your obligations. So it's kind of like the mantra of the Riss Lawton Company, if you will, is values first and obligations second.
Right.
So, like, you completed the audit, but the way that it works is it's about a 10-page workbook. And so the first section helps you figure out what are your core values. And I've provided everybody with some general ones, but I've had a lot of clients who change them up to match their lifestyle a little bit better. But the general ones that I provide everybody with are like, your marriage, family time, one-on-one time with your kids, like parenting, self-care is huge, your business or your career, and then volunteering, or it's kind of an other category. A lot of people use it for hobbies or volunteering. Some people use it for like their church or their spirituality. But I have people go through those categories and assign time and assign, their wish list of what they would do in each of those categories first. And we build a schedule around that. And most moms find out that they're spending about if they do it correctly, they spend about 200 hours a month in those categories, which leaves them about another 200 to 300 hours a month for everything that they feel like they have to do. And I just think it's really interesting to get people to think in this opposite way about time, about building a schedule around your values first. And then when you have time left over, then you schedule your doctor's appointments. Then you schedule your, you wait for the cable guy, or you run your errands, or you go grocery shopping. So many people still do it the other way around. So the whole point of the audit is just to help you think of your values first and your obligations second.
Oh, yeah, it's so important that you do that, because then when you're spending the majority of your time doing something, you're going to feel like it's aligned with what's important to you. And then when you're doing those smaller things, it's like, okay, yeah, I need to do these, but I still had that time first to do what is important. So like, spending time with your husband or your family, if that's really important to you, then why would it make sense to just give them like the last 5 minutes of your day if you spent the whole day doing stuff that you felt obligated to do, and then you only spend a few minutes with them, and then you just end up hating your life because you feel like you're always doing stuff to please other people and not what you want to do. So exactly. I just think that's so super duper powerful.
So I love the audit because it almost does it combines those two parts of me almost perfectly, like the strategy part and the helper, because there's a whole like analytical side of it where if we think about it, on a 30-day month, we have 720 hours in a 30-day month. Now February of course has less, and a 31-day month has more, but if we're just going to be general about it, we have 720 hours in a given month. And if we all take out 8 hours of sleep a night, I know we're moms and we're professionals, so we don't get 8 hours of sleep a night. But I just automatically count that for everybody because I firmly believe that the first step to being happy and healthy is the right amount of sleep. So if you count that out, you've got 480 hours a month that you are awake. And when I work with clients and I tell them that, it's like this big light bulb goes off. They're like, holy crap, I have 500 hours a month. I'm sitting here telling myself I have no time.
Totally.
Well, obviously that's not true. I have almost 500 hours a month. So I have time. I'm just not using it appropriately.
Yeah.
And so that's what the audit is all about. It helps you take those 480 hours and divide them into categories, put the 480 hours into the categories that are important to you first, and then what's left over goes to what you feel like you have to do.
Yeah, and I don't think many people would ever sit down and work out like how many hours do they have in a week. So just when you in a week or a day or a month, like when you break it down like that, you're like, okay, yeah, I really do have it. And then I think automatically you saying that then makes you start to think, okay, so how can I be intentional about this time? Like, how can I really spend this time in a way that's gonna maximize my chances of like achieving the goals that I want to achieve? And then I think for me, after I did it, it's like, you know what, I need to be more protective of my time too, because it's really like, it's a hot commodity for me. Like, so when someone's asking me to do something, whereas before I was more of a yes person, now I'm like, actually, no, I can't do that because I need to do this, and this is actually more important than that. And just because somebody has asked me to do it doesn't mean I have to jump and say yes. And I think that can work in the workplace too, because often you might be in the middle of doing something, and I talk to people about this all the time. Like, you might be in the middle of like drafting something, or doing something really important, and then someone calls you, and then you automatically just pick up your phone, or someone walks into your office and you just answer, and it's like you can actually tell people like, excuse me, I'm in the middle of something, I just need to have a minute, I'll get back to you.
Yes, like 4 or 5 points that you made that I thought were so important. The first one is like, there is a difference between important and urgent. And a lot of people don't get that. They think that anything that is urgent is important. And that's not necessarily true. What's important is what you say is important. So if finishing your draft is more important than answering that phone call, then that's what's more important. So a lot of people get that confused. And like you were saying that your time is a precious commodity. People budget their money. You know, why not budget your time?
Yes.
We all learn about opportunity costs, right? If you have $100 and you buy a $50 bag, then that was the opportunity cost of that bag is you could have bought $50 worth of something else. Well, why not use those same principles with your time? If you have 10 hours a week that you could be, that's left over, you know, after you work or whatever, and you have 10 hours a week, well, if you spend 10 of those or 8 of those hours doing errands, then you've only got 2 hours left over for what you want. The opportunity cost is you could have been using those 8 hours with your husband, with your children.
Yeah.
You know, so many people can do this with money, and it's the same concept. Budget your time, you know, and apply some of those money rules to your time rules. So I do agree with you 100% when you say it's a precious commodity, and you get to decide what you spend your money on, just like you get to decide what you spend your time on.
Yeah. And the thing is, with money, it's like you can always earn more money, but you can never get your time back. So we should take this approach to time even more so than money, I think.
Yeah, and when you mentioned intentional, that reminded me of one of my favorite clients, because I have, you know, 2 ways that I work with clients, and this client we worked in 2 sessions. So the first session, she really, she decided that her main goal was to become intentional, because she said, just like you, she said, I have this much time, and how do I want to use it? You know, I am the one in charge of this. This is my power, how I spend my time. So she said she wanted to become very intentional. And then in our second call, which was kind of our follow-up session, she said, you know, after she had done some of the strategies we talked about, she said, I no longer feel like a victim to the clock.
Oh, wow.
It was always like the time was running me, and I was so overwhelmed and I was so stressed out with everything that I felt like I had to do. Now I'm not a victim anymore. I run my time, and I build my schedule around what's important to me. And then I just like with your work example, I write this draft and I get to decide when I answer the phone. You know, yeah. I run my business, I spend time with my kids, and I get to decide when I give my time to a social obligation that I don't really care about.
Yeah.
You know, and we do it backwards so many times. We're like, oh, I have to do this. I have to go to this function because if I don't, I'm going to look bad or whatever. And it's going to take 3 hours of my day. Well, actually, you don't have to use those 3 hours doing what you don't want to do.
Yeah, there's always a choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh, this stuff is so good. So if someone wants to get the audit, if they want to hear more from you, where do you hang out? Where can they find out more?
Yeah, my website is just risslawton.com. So that's really easy. And I'm also on all the social medias. My username is just Riss Lawton.
Okay.
Periscope, where you found me, it's just at Riss Lawton. And then the Audit, I have a really easy link to remember, so I make it really easy for everybody. It's a bit.ly link, so it's a short link, and it's just bit.ly/balanced mompreneur, because that's what we all want, is balance in our life.
Yes, totally. Oh, it's been so good talking to you. These tips are just gold to me, and I'm sure
Oh,
to everyone who's listening. So yeah, and like I said, it's just awesome how you've been able to combine, your talents in different areas, and then come to a place where you're just helping people just really get what they need, because balance is one of those things that everybody's striving towards. So yeah, awesome. So
thank you. Yeah, this has been so fun. And I love speaking with professional women who are also moms, because while I may look like I figured it out, it's still a struggle every day. And there were lots of decision points and lots of choices along the way. So talking about these choices is what's huge and what helps us all figure it out, and having a conversation around it. So I'm just thankful for the opportunity to be able to reach your audience and to chat with you about stuff that's so important.
yeah, I'm just so grateful that you've been here today. And I think, just to close, it's like, one of the things that everyone should make sure they do is find a community and find people that are walking a similar walk to you, either at the same time or are a little bit ahead of you, that can kind of support you through the difficult times. Because as a mom, it's not easy. As a professional, it's not easy. As a business owner, it's not easy. So I think if we can all share and we can help each other out, then yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, agree.
So yeah, thank you. Hopefully we'll talk to you again on the show. But as you shared with people where you're at, I'm gonna also put the links in the show notes for people too.
Great.
So thank
Yes,
you.
I'd love to be back anytime.
Awesome. Thanks.
Mind blown. That was so good. I learned so much from Marissa today, and I hope you're sitting there thinking about how you can take a more efficient approach to managing your time. We also talked about the importance of community during this show. If you are looking for a community of like-minded women, I suggest you join the Lawyer Mum Network. Go to lightboxcoaching.com/network and join the group so that you can connect with me and other amazing women who can support you on your lawyer mum journey. Okay, so the last thing I want to say is, if you enjoyed this show, please subscribe and leave a rating and review so that other lawyer mums just like you can find and listen to the show via iTunes. That's all from me for today. I look forward to speaking to you again in the next episode. In the meantime, have a great day. Look after you and look after your babies. The More Than a Lawyer podcast features music from Ben Sound.